from Friday to now. I understand it was very, very busy and hectic. And how's it going so far?
Good.
Great. And name me one thing that you guys have learned so far. I'm going to go around the room real quick. One thing. We'll start from my right. Ramoni, one thing that you learned that you did not know. Or that re-emphasized what you learned.
You can start from here.
Make it quick.
You can start from here.
I can't think under pressure.
Please.
Can't think under pressure?
From here.
I can start with Peter.
Yes.
Peter. Okay, Shoy. I call him Peter. He looks like a Peter. Shoy. Oh my God. في حاجة I don't know. أي حاجة
You were born Bishoy and then Bishoy's like you were Peter. Okay.
He comes to Thursday night, so I know him. I just had a brain fart. في حاجة أنت
اكيد طبعا تعلمنا حاجات كتيره من
من يوم الجمعة للنهارده. ماشي. I'll ask the question in 5. You want to say something?
Yeah.
Please do. What's your name first of all?
Miriam.
Mary, nice to meet you. I'm Phoebe.
Nice to meet you.
She was not ready for this.
Wait, I learned that in a marriage it's 100-100, not 50-50.
I like that.
When you have to meet not halfway, but you give it your all, like your 100, and then they give their 100, and that's how you know like.
Actually,
That's a great segue into my talk. So thank you so much, Ryan, for that. So what we're talking about right now is to never quit. So my purpose for asking to go around, but I realize you guys don't like to, some of you don't like to work under pressure. I get that. But where I was going with that is that whatever you did know, now you know a new technique. Now you know something different. Now you know another tool in your toolbox. So the idea is to never quit. When you fail, do you just stay down or do you pick yourself up? This is going to be an interactive conversation. It's not one-sided. I talk, you answer. I ask a question, you answer. This is how it's going to work. When you fall, do you get back up? لما بتقع بتقوم تاني?
Supposed to. Yes.
Yeah. You ride a horse. You fall off the horse. If you're a horse rider, I am not, and I've been on a horse and I had a horse accident. Okay, do you get back on the horse and try again? If you're a horse rider,
You did not.
I did not. So that's not a good example. Thank you, Simon. Okay, but if you are an avid horse rider, you get back up.
Yes.
You get back up. If you are a race car driver and you had an accident, but this is your livelihood, you are a race car driver, do you get back into the ring and go back and do that turn in the Indy 500s?
Yes.
You go back. Now, how much more is it in marriage?
So much more.
You get back up. If you don't do the 100 and 100, and let's say today, I'm not feeling it, all right? My husband and I, we're just off kilter. He's doing 60%, I'm doing 40, and you know what? I don't feel like it, Miriam. I don't want to give even my 40. Yalla ba. Do we feel that way sometimes for the people that are married, the very few people in this room that are married? Do we ever feel this way?
I'm sure they do.
We do, right? Some of them are nodding.
You're human.
We're human.
You're gonna have your bad days.
And that's when we give grace. And that's when we give grace. So my talk today is never quit. Never quit. You talked about a lot of things this weekend, right? You talked about 5 discipline commitments for marriage. You talked about society, what culture says. What does Jesus say? When marriage is failing, is it one person's fault over the other? Or does it take two?
Takes two.
When you do a dance, a tango, does everybody know how to do a tango?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a tango for you.
No.
You probably didn't know this happens, but I love to dance. Okay? You do a dance. How many people does it take? 1, 2, 3.
Two.
1, 2, 3.
You can dance by yourself, but it takes two.
1, 2. It takes 2 people to tango. It takes 2 people to do a dance. But who's in the midst? Figuratively, in a marriage, God is in the midst. God is in the midst. Physically, if you're doing a dance, a ballroom dance, or whatever dance, it takes 2 to tango. So it takes 2 to mess things up. تاخد 2. مش واحد بس is at fault. I'll try to interweave. هحاول أعمل عقلي كمان شوي. Okay. بس ما تضحكش عليا. Okay شوي؟
Okay, I love you.
Okay. Thank you, حبيبي. Okay. So it takes 2 people, whether you're giving 100%, 50%, 10%, 0%. It takes two people to tango. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what does God want. Not what Phoebe wants, not what Michael wants, not what John wants, not what Simone wants, not what Ramoni wants, any of you. Because it's so easy to lay down on the floor and say, I'm done. I'm done. I'm fed up. خلاص على آخري. This marriage isn't working. I'm trying. I'm giving. Even though really, if I was really honest with myself, am I really doing my best? Am I really giving Mariam 100% of myself? If I was really honest, maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. But God hates divorce. God is clear. Whatever society tells you, you know what? He's not worthy of you. You're not worthy of him. It's easy to listen to the little whispers. الشيطان في ودانا. انت ليه معايا؟ هو ليه معاكي؟ انتوا قاعدين بتتخانقوا. العيال مجنننا. It's easy to do that and say, you know, excuse me, I spit when I talk, so clear the way. It's easy to say, we're done, and to quit. It takes courage to say, I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna share a story with you all, and I hope this stays just between us. So I've been married going on 33 years. This August will be 33 years. Yes, I got married when I was 10 years old. Thank you very much. Okay, I knew you guys were gonna say that, so I just beat you to it and gave a compliment to myself. That's how I roll. Okay? In the second year of my marriage, I was done. And you know what? He's telling you the truth. I told myself a story. And that story was that he's not giving 50-50. Right now we're learning 100-100, right, Miriam? Back then it was 50-50. Back then we didn't have counseling for marriage before you got married. Back then it's, oh, I'm in love. Let's get married. That was it. It wasn't heart and brain. It was all heart. Money? بعدين later هنفكر في الفلوس بعدين. المهم احنا بنحب بعض هنتجوز. هنعيش في بيت واحد. Yay. Okay. 2 years into that, I'm thinking, what did I do? Not what you did. And by the way, my husband is an amazing man. Hands down, and I'm not worthy of him. I'm thinking to myself, what did I do? Because I had this image of what marriage is. كلنا بنحط احنا الصورة للجواز. أهالينا بيحطوا لنا احنا بنشوف ماما بابا بيتخانقوا أو مش بيتخانقوا, whatever way. They tell you a story whether you like it or not. They're telling you what your thoughts are for marriage. Without them even speaking a word sometimes. Just the interaction between mom and dad in the household tells you, that's the kind of marriage I want, or no way, that's not the kind of marriage I want. If I see fighting every day, شوف الخناق على طول أنا مع أبويا وأمي, يبقى أنا أقول أنا مش عايزة أتجوز. هشوف أنا خناق على طول, أنا مش عايزة ده. Or you could have, or you tell yourself a different story. يا ما أنا أتجوز, أنا مش هعمل كده. We don't have to live out the stories of our parents, but they're the easiest ones to adopt and make it our own. So be careful. I was telling this to my son the other day. Okay, he was listening to the radio station, and I'm like, Max, you just can't listen to whatever station you want. I said, you have to watch what you hear. Watch what you see, and watch where you go, where your feet take you. يعني بتشوف حاجة وتشوف ماما بيتخانقوا. We all fight, right? This is not a secret to you. Michael and I fight. We fought in front of my son. He still remembers it to this day. It was 2 years ago. To this day, he remembers the fight that his dad and I had. He can never unsee that. He can never unsee that. So he's listening to the radio station. I said, you can only listen to a Christian radio station. بس. This is not, what do you say radio station?
91.9.
راديو. تسمع راديو مسيحي بس. ما تقدرش تسمع حاجة تانية غير راديو مسيحي. ولو هتسمع أغاني تانية لازم بابا وماما يبقوا معاك عشان لو قالوا كلمة مش كويسة يبقى ماما وبابا يصلحوا اللي انت بتسمعه. So that's what I'm telling my son, right? So what story are you telling yourself when you see your mom and dad fighting? Just think about that. That's not for us to share here, but to think about that. And then the decision is you. You each make your own decision. What story you're going to tell yourself. And we're going to talk about what divorce does to the kids. We're going to come right back full circle. So I'm hoping this will take about 45 minutes. I'm going to move to your pace, okay? So it can go faster, it can go slower. It's up to your pace, and I got permission from Ehab, all right? Okay, so God hates divorce. God is clear, God hates divorce. Just like God is against certain things that I'm sure John was talking about staying pure. Just what I'm sure about what Esther was talking about in her talk. God hates certain things. Is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. The Bible says, what does it say, Esther, about anger?
Be angry and do not.
Esther. Okay.
Be angry, do not sin.
Be angry and do not sin. Thank you so much. I know you have. I know. All right. Let's look at the divorce rates. If you're married, the first time marriage ends in divorce, around 35 to 50%. That's a high number. 35% بيطلقوا. That's on the low side. And these statistics, I think it was 2019, if my memory serves me correct, it's 2019 statistics. Okay? You guys can see it over here. Second marriage, it increases up to 60%.
Just a second. This
Hold on.
for the United States, it doesn't matter Christian or non-Christian.
The study, there are some flaws in the study. This doesn't take into effect Christian, married, Muslim, Hindu, whatever. It's just marriage and for 15 years of age and older. Okay? 15 years of age and older. All right. Second marriage increases the divorce rate up to 60%. Third marriage is 70% or more. So if we think, you know what? I want to exchange my beautiful husband for a newer model. My increase rate for divorce goes up to 60%. I got this one already broken in. Why would I return?
Eyes at 2023.
You know? I don't want a new model. It's going to take you longer to break them in. لا لا خليك هنا عشان أنا عندي حاجة. All right. Matthew 19:6. I think I asked somebody here. Coronas, can you please read Matthew 19:6? Hajji?
So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate.
Okay. The two becomes one flesh. I wanted to do an exercise, but my fault I didn't tell Esther about it, to get paper and glue. Imagine that you got paper or glue, or let's say you got a salt pepper shaker, a salt shaker, and a pepper shaker, and you glue them together. And now we're going to rip them apart. What will happen? Anybody.
It's gonna break.
It's going to break, right? لو جبنا حاجة لزقناها مع بعض بالglue.
One or both of things are gonna fall
لازم.
apart.
لما نكسرها كده، ايه اللي هتحصل لما نعملها كده؟ هتتكسر. هل الحاجة زي ما هي؟ Is it the same?
No.
Is my salt shaker the same? No. Is my pepper shaker the same?
No.
No, it's not going to be the same. You'll never be the same again. And that's what this is saying. Divorce changes you. Divorce changes you. So let nobody separate. Jesus' words. So there are 3 truths to a marriage, and I want this to be a conversation. Because let me tell you guys, what Abuna Tadrus did for this, and all of the servants that participated and worked on this, I wish everybody could take this. I wish every person, I don't care if they're Muslim or Christian or Hindu or Buddhist or whatever faith or whatever religion, that everybody can take this. Because marriage is the one relationship that God says the two becomes one. The two become one. You know how we say blood is thicker than water?
Yeah.
I don't believe that for a second. You know why I don't believe that for a second? Because God says the two become one. And we're not related. But the two people, through the mystery, become one. Become one. So then how can a judge or an abuna or anybody, how can we even divorce ourselves? Now, let me be clear. This is not for people that are getting mentally abused or physically abused. This is not for the woman who's getting beat up by her husband. This is not for the person who is has schizophrenia. It's not for this talk this weekend, if I can be so blunt to share. This whole weekend is not for those. Those are the exceptions. Those are the exceptions. Here we're talking about your baseline. This is for the 90%. This is for the 90% that say, you know what, I just want to quit. I'm done. He didn't make me breakfast today. How rude. You know, or he's not working today. How terrible. This is for the 90% when we feel like we want to quit. Absent all these exceptions of mental abuse, mental ability, and physical abuse. So not talking about those. Those are exceptions, just to be clear. 3 truths. Marriage is not a contract, it's a covenant. That's one of the greatest words. Contract, not a covenant. What does that mean? Ramon, what does it mean? What's a contract and what's a covenant?
It's a good question.
It's a good question, right? Yeah. Does anybody know what a covenant and a contract, what the difference is?
Like when you sign a contract, it's a bunch of rules and like.
A bunch of rules?
Yeah.
Keep going, you're
But
giving
it's
me what I like.
It's like, well, I don't know what a covenant is, but I know like.
But a contract, does everybody know what a contract is?
It's a bunch of rules and like, things you can't, like, rules you can't break. It's business.
Business rules you can't break. He's a business major, so he knows.
I was
Habibi
going to say
Mullah.
contract you can break.
Break it.
Covenant is not broken.
A contract is based on, I don't trust you, and so we're gonna have a contract, because I don't trust you. I don't trust you. You're gonna pay the rent between the 1st and the 5th of the month. And if you don't, I'm gonna evict you. Right? Because I don't trust you. That's why I have a contract. Contract says no pets in the house. Michael and I used to have a property. We sold it. Okay? The lady didn't pay. For like 6 months, the lady didn't pay. And I'm like, we have bills too that we need to pay. Here's the contract. We're going to court, honey. We're going to court. It's a contract that's based on rules. It's based on not trusting the other person. That's what a contract is. A marriage is not a contract. A marriage is a covenant. And a covenant is from God. And that goes back to the mystery of being one. It's a covenant. A covenant is basically God saying the two become one flesh. Yes.
Isn't also, you can say another difference between the contract and the covenant, since you emphasize the point that a contract, there's no trust, the covenant, there is trust.
You can make that leap. You can. What, John, did you do a study on covenant? I think you did. I don't know why, I'm just thinking you did.
Not, like, I didn't give a talk on it, if that's what you're asking.
But I'm sure you did your research on covenant.
Somewhat, yes.
What's a covenant, John?
So, like, when we talk about the covenants that God gave us, these are promises that don't depend on your performance. So these are independent promises that have nothing to do with your performance. So I think the biggest difference is a contract expects performance on both sides. You're going to do this, I'm going to do that, otherwise we break the contract.
Mm-hmm.
The covenant is independent. I'm going to make a promise in this agreement that we have, in this promise that we have. So when God had a covenant with humanity, even though the humans didn't keep their side of the covenant, God still kept his side of the covenant. So a covenant, that's why when we were talking about marriage, we said it's 100% and 100%, because it's a covenant, it's not a contract.
And it's like, the flood, when God broke the flood, okay, after that, he had a covenant with his people that he will not do the flood again, okay? Although man continued to sin, but God kept that covenant.
Kept that promise.
Kept that promise.
And that's the key word, is the promise.
What's the difference between a covenant and an oath? I mean, they're kind of like the same thing.
No, in oath is closer
It's still a
to
promise.
contract. No, but in oath also, you can break your oath.
You can break an oath.
Yeah, so,
Shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
Yeah, but
you
Yeah.
shouldn't, but you can break an oath.
you can
But
break a
covenant,
covenant too.
it's coming from a higher end, so,
So-
it's God will never change. So when he gives those covenants to his people, nothing will change no matter what.
So Phil just said something very interesting. He said, well, you can, God bless you, you can break a promise or a covenant, can't you? Like we're seeing divorce, it's supposed to be a covenant. But we're talking about from God's perspective, from the way God designed it. God makes us promises, and we're making promises we shouldn't break either. But we're not signing something. But let me tell you something. Well, let me finish this one, then I'm going to tell you a story. Another story. So in a marriage, so a marriage is not a contract, it's a covenant. You seek God. When you have a contract, who do you seek? The court.
The courts.
Go to a lawyer. You seek a court. All right? Somebody read me Malachi. I think I asked somebody to read me Malachi. Yes, someone read me Malachi. 13 to 16, actually. I said 14 to 16. Read me 13 to 16.
And this is the second thing you do. You cover the altar of the Lord with tears, with weeping and crying. So he does not regard the offering anymore, nor receive it with goodwill from your hands. Yet you say, for what reason? Because the Lord has been witness between you and the wife of your youth, with whom you have dealt treacherously. Yet she is your companion and your wife by covenant. But did he not make them one, having a remnant of the Spirit, and one? He seeks godly offspring. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously with the wife of his youth. For the Lord God of Israel says that he hates divorce, for it covers one's garment with violence, says the Lord of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that you do not deal treacherously.
So there's a couple of things here. One, because you dealt treacherously with the wife of your youth. Nowadays, people want to get married 2, 3, 4, 5, well, however many times that they want, right? When you get married, the wife wants to change the husband, right? Usually, sometimes. And the husband says, my wife, I want her to never change. Well, what happens over time? The wife gets older, gets gray hair, okay? Gets a little bit, chunky, loses the teeth, loses hair, whatever it is. Same thing with the husband, all right? That's over time. We change. So if you get into a marriage to change somebody, that's not going to work. You either accept the person as they are or don't marry that person, as folks were talking throughout this past weekend. So nowadays you see people getting divorced and marrying somebody that's younger. And people wonder, why isn't God blessing me? Why isn't God blessing me? Well, you're dealing treacherously with the wife of your youth. Deal good with the people in your household. Maybe God will bless you. So look at the Bible, not just words being said, but study it. Read it, especially if you're thinking about marriage. I know you're all young, none of you are thinking about marriage, but so this is like years and years down the road. Years and years after you're done with school. Years and years. But something for you to think about right now. About 6 years ago, my husband and I, we went to a conference. It's called, what is it called, Michael? Weekend to Remember.
Yeah.
Weekend to Remember. And one of the Abuelas at St. Mark recommended it. And we loved it. It was awesome. We stayed at a hotel. And it was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We volunteered. We passed out brochures. We sat during all their talks. It was an evening talk, all day Saturday, and then a Sunday talk. It was absolutely phenomenal. And they talked about everything that we're talking about here. And we took this 6 years ago. And at the end, it was this big certificate, and it was written on their covenant. A marriage covenant between, and then you fill in the blank, Michael Gaid and Fiby Gaid. And then the verse from the Bible. And it was witnessed. We had our neighbors witness it and signed. And I have it and I framed it in our bedroom. So we have a physical thing that we can see. Not just beautiful wedding pictures from 30 plus years ago, but a covenant to see. And to always refresh our marriage. Always refresh it in the right way. So when I was telling you about my first 2 years of marriage, Michael and I, we sat down together and we talked about what is acceptable for us and what's not acceptable. And we decided at that time, 2 years ago, 2 years after our marriage, divorce was not an option. That we can either be miserable in this marriage or we can be happy in this marriage. And so we made a decision. We had an attitude adjustment from the neck up that that's not an option for us. We will stay together no matter what. But we can be happy in the marriage or mad at the marriage. And it was a decision. So there's 3 attitudes or 3 mindsets. 1, so commit to staying married. Let's say there's another couple, and this couple, the mom and dad say, get a divorce. And this is a real story that I read about. But this husband and wife, the mom said, get divorced. The aunt said, go back to your house and you stay with your husband. You married him, you stay with him. And every time this little woman would get upset, this was back in I think she got married in 1969. She would go back and she'd talk to her husband and try to work things through. She'd go to her aunt, and her aunt would say, go back to your husband. ارجعي لبيت جوزك. Work things out. اتكلموا وتفهموا. They actually later on started their own ministry. And they've been married over 60 years. Had she listened to her mom, who said, get a divorce, she would have been part of the percentages that I showed you earlier. Because in the second marriage, it goes up to 60% for divorce. So watch who you listen to. شوفوا تسمعوا كلام مين. And the Bible is our rule. Not anybody in this room is the rule. The Bible. الإنجيل هو الguide. Take your guidance from the Bible. Alright, the other truth. Marriage is not man-made. It's not a man-made situation. But God-ordained mystery. We want to understand everything, but some things we just don't understand. How can the two become one flesh? That's so hard to understand, but it's a mystery. And we discard things that we don't understand. If I don't understand it, I'm going to throw it away. We don't want that. There's a lot of things we don't understand. The earth is flat. That's what the world knew before Christopher Columbus. The earth is flat. If we go all the way to the end, هنقع from the earth. Some guy challenged the idea. No, the earth is round. How? How can that be? How can the earth be round? Well, back then, they didn't have information. So you have to challenge some things. We don't like what we don't understand, but just because we don't understand it doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's okay that we do what we want to do. We don't want to be lovers of pleasure. We want to be lovers of God. Some mysteries that we don't understand. The water turns into holy water, baptism. When we dunk our children in 3 times, Abuna, Ya'amid, it was tap water. How did it all of a sudden become spiritual water? It's a mystery. It's a mystery. The healing. When Abuna puts his hand on us and he prays on us, and we get healed. It's a mystery. Marriage, it's a mystery. We know the what, but we don't know the how. We know the what. We put the water in the baptismal, but we don't know how it becomes a mystery. That's up to God. That's not up to us to figure out. That's up to God. Can somebody bring open Ephesians? I didn't ask my other folks. Ephesians, Muller, do you have your phone? Ephesians 5, verse 31 and verse 32. Any question while Muller's bringing that up? Any question about what I said so far? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Or do you just want to get out of here?
No, it makes sense.
Ephesians 5:31.
And Muller's getting it.
I'm just reading.
31 to 32. Ephesians.
Shall I read?
Yes, please read it.
For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church.
Okay, very good. Now we can get deeper in here about how Jesus died, right? The bridegroom died for the church. And he is talking about that as well. He's also talking about marriage, husband and wife, the very first relationship that God ordained on earth. Husband and wife. Marriage is not undoable, but an already done. So notice we didn't say an engagement. Engagement ممكن تتفك، الخطوبة ممكن تتفك. بس الجواز is not undo. You can't hit an undo button. You know how you mess up on a document, you hit undo, undo, undo? Like 15 times to get back to where you did? I did that once when I was doing my master's degree, and I had hit save by accident, and I was trying to undo, 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 and it wouldn't undo. I had to retype my whole thesis all over again, like 300 pages.
Oh.
I was in pain. I was in pain. So there's no undo button in marriage. God created a marriage, and it begins with the done. I always wondered why don't we, okay. You know how the American marriages is, right? Okay?
Mikey, watch out.
We're doing this, right? And then he says a vow. هو يقول كلام حلو, right? وانا اقول كلام حلو, right? احنا بنعمل كده في الكنيسة لما بنتجوز ممكن كلام حلو لبعض العروس والعريس. ما بنقولش. Yeah, sit on that. We don't do that. I always wondered, why don't we do that? Why aren't we like the American marriages where we say vows? You know why? You got it, Miriam. It's to God. It's to God. And when you bow down in front of the altar, that's when God is giving you the blessing. He's the third party in your marriage. So no longer are the two, but one. That is a mystery. It begins with a done. So when you get into a marriage, you get into it knowing, eyes wide open, and you know what you're getting into, and divorce should not be an option. We cannot separate what God has put in place. It's not man man's place, we talked about that. We don't, it's not a contract, it's a covenant. We don't go to court to get a divorce. Or we don't go to court for a covenant. Okay. It's not a contract. All right. Marriage is not a noun, it's a verb. So tell me some ways that marriage can be a verb. You must have learned something this weekend. How can it be a verb?
Is a verb like actions or?
Yes, an action, yes.
Oh, in the marriage you both do stuff, like, I don't know, like, for example, like reassure each other.
Reassure each other, that's good.
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice, good. What other verbs are there for marriage?
Perseverance.
Perseverance. Okay, but give it to me intangible.
What does that mean?
Like, give it to me on a day-to-day basis. What does that look like? What does a good marriage look like?
Communication.
Communication. Michael, I don't like my eggs burnt. I like my eggs soft or over easy. He doesn't burn it. I'm just giving example. He doesn't burn any. Boundaries, creating boundaries. Okay? I like to wake up early. My husband doesn't like to wake up early. I can use that time to read the Bible, go for a walk. Yeah, he wakes up early.
Are you for the same reason?
So marriage is a verb, not a noun. So here's 3 principles that you can walk away with, and we're almost done. You reap what you sow. Polly, you're disturbing my talk. Habi. It's okay. So you reap what you sow. Let's say I'm a workaholic, and I am. I'm always focusing at work. What's going to happen to the marriage?
It'll fall apart.
You'll struggle. You'll struggle. Okay. So you reap what you sow. Okay. Let's say I'm always smiling at my husband, or my husband always smiling at me. What's the natural reaction?
Just smile back.
My husband will smile back. I'll criticize my spouse. What is he going to do in return?
Same thing.
نعمل نفس الشيء، رد الفعل هيبقى كده. أنا كويسة مع الناس هيعملوا إيه معايا؟
إن شاء الله يبقوا كويسين معاكي.
Exactly. So الدنيا زي المراية. الجواز زي المراية. You forgive, they forgive. You don't forgive, you will not be forgiven. By the measure that is poured out to you, it will be given unto you. And if I could go as, like, I think at the first wedding I've ever seen, I think was my husband's sister in Egypt. And I remember Abuna بيقول متكشريش في وشه. And then I saw one of our cousins also in New York, I think it was Nadine's wedding. Abuna لا متكشريش في وشه. It's like, I'm thinking, like, what's the big deal كشر في وشه? Like, if he's هنقشر, you know? مش فاهمة. But now, living through the marriage, I understand that it's a mirror. Marriage is a mirror. Marriage is a mirror. كشر في وشه, كشر في وشه. Had criticized, you'll criticize. There will be nitpicking, the person will be nitpicky back. Okay, so that's what I mean by you reap what you sow. Now let's talk about you reap where you sow. Whatever you do will grow. I work more, I'm going to move up in the organization. That's going to grow. But what else am I compromising?
Your marriage.
My marriage, exactly right. Compromising my marriage. So you have to watch what you're watering. Okay, what are you watering today? بتذاكروا كويس? كويس. Then you're going to get good grades. You're going to get good grades. So whatever you water will grow. If you water your marriage will grow. If you don't water the marriage will not grow. What's going on? The dynamic duo over there. You reap after your sow. Anybody here farmers? Or their parents are farmers? Anybody here farmers?
In Egypt.
In Egypt? Okay. What happens what do they do, the farmers? It's not a trick question. They plant a seed. They plant a seed. Do they expect a harvest tomorrow?
No.
No. It comes after time. That's what marriage is too. When you reap where you sow, when you reap what you sow, you will collect a harvest after. It could be after a year. It could be after 5 years. But don't expect that you're nice today and you expect your spouse to change tomorrow. It takes time. It takes time. You reap the harvest after. You plant the seed today, you plant strawberry seeds, you'll get strawberries after however long it takes. If you plant strawberry seeds, you're going to get strawberries, right? Has it ever been known that you plant strawberry seeds and you get apples?
No,
No,
you can't.
you can't. So you be careful what you're sowing. What seed are you planting today? What seed are you throwing into the ground? Is it criticism, frustration, anger, hatred, contempt? Or is it love, hope, joy? What are you planting? What are you planting? كرولوس. I think قلت لك اقرا حاجة, right? أمير قلت لك اقرا حاجة. Okay, اقرا and then I'll get to you. Yeah, you'll do next.
Okay, so I'm reading 1 Timothy 4,
Yep.
from 1 to 3.
You got it.
Now the Spirit expressly said that in the later times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, sparking lies, having their own conscience seared with hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from foods which God created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. And know the truth.
So that's a lot of stuff. So some people in the biblical times and now they're saying, you know what, we're not going to get married. We're just going to live together. And then if it turns out we get married, then we get married. And so right now, the statistics show that fewer people are getting married. Fewer people are getting married. So there's a lot to unpack in there, and I'm not going to unpack not even I'm going to just a little bit of it, not all of it. Okay. But you have to be careful. What deceiving spirits are you listening to? Where are you reaping? Where are you sowing? What are you sowing? So, go ahead, Mike. Read your part. And say what are you reading? Chapter, book.
Oh, that's Romans.
Okay. 7.
Romans 7, 2 and 3, verse 2 and 3. It says, for the woman who has a husband is bound by the law to her husband as long as he lives. But if the husband dies, she is released from the law for her husband. So then if while her husband lives, she's married, she marries another man, she will be called an adulteress. But if her husband dies, she is free from that law, so that she is no adulteress, though she has married another man.
So basically, when you're married, if the spouse dies, you can remarry again. Okay.
Yeah.
Do not commit murder, Amir. أنا سامعاك يا بابا. أنت كمان؟ هلا أمير. They're saying the same things about you. Kill the spouse.
So is your spouse not bad? Why did you marry?
Nowhere in the Bible says do not commit murder. Okay, so the 3 mindsets: commit to staying married, establish a good marriage ethic, like a work ethic, work on your marriage, okay, and decide to pursue the commandment while still being faithful in marriage. Right? Don't look outside. We're gonna talk about that. Don't look outside the marriage. Don't be sharing stuff outside the marriage. Keep whatever's happening in the marriage in the marriage. You know why the devil around? It's about love. Love is circular, never ending. Doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end. It's circular. That's what to remind us. Never ending. Never ending. And if that doesn't convince you, I found some tips. I didn't list all 15 out there. I think these are about 8 things. People who get divorced are less healthy and less happy. So if you do get rid of your spouse, Amir, okay,
Be a murderer or
you'll
divorce.
put that aside. Let's say you found a way and you made it look like an accident. You're less healthy, less happy.
Who said let's have it? You don't gotta be married.
To another one. Until you get rid of her too. Okay. Love shapes your personality. So just think, when you're married, it shapes your character. The struggles that you go through shapes who you are. It shapes your character. You may change negatively unrealistic relationship goals. Wow. Oh, scared you, didn't you? But that's a perfect example in marriage. Comes right through, doesn't even know what he did. He's smiling. No, like he scared John. He came right through there to have fun. You think you have better options, but you probably don't have better options. Everybody thinks. What is it? So this is like, if you think, so the benefits of never quitting. So here's the thing: is it because of a mental? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not for those that are mentally unstable, or there's people that are getting abused, physically and mentally abused. That's not for them. It's not for them. That's not for them at all. I agree with you 100%. It's not for them. She said that what happens if somebody's physically and mentally abused? So I said, this is not this PowerPoint or this weekend is not for those people. That's, you talk to Abuna about it. Ask Abuna. I'm not Abuna. Ask Abuna. There's lots of things. Abuna's not going to say, oh, okay. Like there has to be proof. There has to be, certain things that are going on. Go talk to Abuna.
I know,
Does she look like a
guys, we have to abide by what the Bible says, because Jesus Christ himself, when they talked about divorce, okay, he stated straight, okay, he said a man cannot divorce his wife only if there is what?
Sexual immorality.
Sexual immorality.
Adultery.
Which is the adultery. Those are the only exceptions.
I see your
You're
hand.
suffering.
Okay,
You
I'll
pray
do it right
about
after.
it. You pray about it. And God will do miracles, okay? I'm gonna continue to pray. Not because my husband or my wife, she's keep beating me up, okay? The easy way, get out of this marriage. No. He said only, Jesus, that's from Jesus Christ himself. He said only for that reason. And they said, hey, Moses told us that, if a man wants to divorce his wife, you just give her a paper for divorce. He said, because of your what? Hardened heart. He did this. But from the beginning, God created man and woman. So that's the thing. So abuse mentally, that's a sickness. Okay, it does mean that you have to divorce him or divorce her because of this. With Fiby, no, I disagree. There should not be a divorce. It's only for this, because God already made the two into one. This happened later on. If it happens later on, okay, that's a sickness. So if I have a sick husband or a sick, so for me, sick wife, okay, she's sick. Easy way out, just to go divorce her? No. Whatever is the sacrifice in this? Because marriage is a sacrifice.
Guys, I'm gonna ring this in. Guys. We're gonna bring it back home. Michael, we're not talking about this today. That's not what the purpose of this today. We're talking about never quit. And for these situations, as I prefaced earlier, that's an Abuna question, not for us right now. So Michael's absolutely right. The Bible says, and I wrote it up on the board. God hates divorce. God hates divorce. Okay. But you had a comment. Go ahead, Hamilton.
What's it called? My mom was telling me you're cheating on your wife. If you go to Abuna and she has the heart to forgive and go on with the marriage, then she still can do that. But if she can't,
You talking about for sexual adultery?
adultery.
Okay, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and if she can't, she can actually get a divorce.
Yes, absolutely. The Bible says it. The Bible says.
Okay.
Yeah, that's adultery is the only reason.
Yeah. If she can forgive.
If you can forgive, she can't, yes. But also just know, guys, in our church, you guys have to have evidence. And it goes all the way up to, no, to the area in Egypt.
Oh,
Okay, it's not just between Abuna here, it goes all the way up.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Divorce, it goes to like the state.
Yeah, it goes to.
I mean, you're gonna have to get a divorce civilly here, if you were to get married.
Coming from people under the
Bishop,
law.
I forget his name, who handles the divorces. There's a special bishop who handles divorces.
Ambabula.
Ambabula, okay. Okay, then it was your turn, yes, sir.
So this is not going to be on the, but one last comment because we're doing something related to domestic violence in the household, and I know a couple individuals, ladies of faith, and pretty devout individuals who know God, who their marriages have failed because they've been victims of abuse, and their testimony or what they share is the same. They get stuck in these relationships and they say, well, my religion tells me I can't. God says I can't, and it's such a big turnoff, and such a misrepresentation of the character of God, because in this sense, sacrifice is not the same. Like, there's a kind of sacrifice that we deal with, and then there's a sacrifice that isn't healthy and isn't necessary. And sometimes if it is a case of abuse, it's not the right act to show sacrifice, because this is not. I guess this would not be a godly
I will
sacrifice.
tell you a story, okay? There was a marriage couple,
For sure. I want us to learn something from what Muller just said, but it's kind of, no offense, Yanni. Usually me and Muller are on opposite things, right? We don't take our right or wrong from equal examples. Okay? It's actually really dangerous, because what happens is over time, cultural norms and right or wrong changes, except in the eye of the Lord. The Lord, nothing changes in His eye. Right is always right, wrong is always wrong. Right? So, what we want to call higher level understanding within humanity, it's not. So we don't take our examples of two holy ladies that got abused. That has nothing to do with right or wrong. That got abused.
Received abuse.
That were abused.
Yes.
The Lord, when he speaks in very clear terms that cross all boundaries and times and cultures and understandings. So there's nothing that is left for us to ponder on certain questions, right? The question of divorce and leaving the marriage was settled clearly by Christ and St. Paul. There's no other questions to be answered about it. One, there is no divorce except for sexual immorality. And sexual immorality is not just adultery. Sexual immorality, we already spoke about it. It starts way before adultery. So Christ allows for divorce for sexual immorality. And St. Paul talks about the right to separate if one of them is a non-believer. That is it. Nothing else. All the other examples you're going to think of, the church will find ways to keep the parties safe, but it will not grant a divorce, and it should not grant a divorce. The church and God does not look to put people in danger just to be in danger, right? But there are other ways besides the separation of the sacrament of the Lord. And those are very well settled in the Bible. You'll have churches today that will give you a divorce because your husband is drunk. You'll have churches that'll give you a divorce because your wife is constantly angry and doesn't respect you. You'll have churches that'll give you a divorce any other reason. Like, there's a bunch of churches out there that'll do whatever. Because culturally now, psychologically now, scientifically now, people talk about the health of the person. So we don't consider the spiritual health of the person. The health of the person can be saved by separating, by creating distance, by keeping them physically safe. But that does not include dissolving the sacrament that only God Himself can dissolve, according to the two things He already spoke of. So I just want to make sure we settle this conversation. There is no divorce, except for sexual immorality and for somebody becoming a non-believer. Besides that, there are other ways to deal with the safety of the person, emotionally, mentally, physically, but it does not include divorce.
And just to add to that, talk to Abuna. Talk to your father of confession. If anybody, none of you guys are married. Don't worry about it. You're not married.
So you're in it for the long haul. You're in it for the long haul. So don't think of anything. If something is broken, you need to work out harder to fix it. There is no way out.
So there's a difference
If
between
you have that mentality, you will face any issue.
there's a difference between what John said, which is separating physically, which is maintaining the sacrament. Like, we're not getting divorced, but then you live separate lives.
Yes.
You live separate lives. So in the sense, in your hearts, you're pretty much divorced. You can have the sacrament that you're married, but you're living as two separate individuals. So it's marriage. It's not the same concept, and like it changes on the outside.
But there's a reason for it.
Yeah, because it's not safe anymore.
No. I'm saying God understands the necessity for someone's safety, right? However, like for example, when St. Paul talks about two non-believers marrying, and then one of them becomes a believer, right? He says his opinion is that the believer, if the non-believer is willing to stay with them, the believer should not leave, right? Why? Although it says do not be unequally yoked. So why? And Paul says because with time and with your sanctification of this marriage, there is a chance you will bring this person to the Lord. It's the same situation when the difference between divorce and separating for physical safety of the person, right? When you separate for physical safety of the person, yes, your day-to-day life no longer looks like you're married. But the sacrament has a mystical work in your life that I can't sit here and try to explain it to you because none of us will understand it or see it. When I try to get a divorce, what I'm doing is I am cutting the sacrament out of my life. So that mystery no longer has space to work in. When I'm physically separating on the outside, in a worldly sense, it looks like this marriage ended. But the reality is, no matter how far I am from my wife, the Holy Spirit still has us connected, and it is working sacramentally to try to bring us back together. There's a much unseen aspect of what we're talking about, rather than what is visually being seen outside by the world.
Very good point.
And that's the story that I was going to talk about, because married couple, the husband is very abusive, and he finds any excuse to just beat up on his wife. Okay, they got him for the marriage for a couple of years, and he continued to be abusive. Okay, until one night when he came back home. He saw his wife is praying for him.
His wife was praying for him.
His wife is praying for him. She said, I know that he doesn't want to do this, but the devil is taking control over his life. Okay? From that moment, that person changed. And that's the work of the Holy Spirit, the sacrament. So not because something is bad or physical, being abused, that's a free out of jail card. Okay? Huh? Continue praying. Says what? What the Bible teaches about prayer? Praying with what? Without what? Without ceasing. Continue. Continue praying. Until one day, something will happen.
This is lovely. I guess the concern is just like if a girl comes to you, and this is probably going to happen to the majority of us, and she's telling you that she's being abused in her relationship, she's getting beat. This is. Huh? Well, I mean, as much as we like to avoid it in our community, it's there. We're just good at hiding. So the thing you say to them is not God wants you. The thing you say to them is not God wants you to be in this, or this is God's will for your life. You obviously have to take the right precautions to make sure they're okay, and you comfort them. We don't start with like nice words of keep praying for them. That's not how we would go about it, because it would be defeating on their behalf.
But most of that happened because of what?
I don't know.
We rush into marriage without knowing the other person. Once you rush into marriage, just for the sake of getting married and get out of the house, okay, you're gonna end up going through those trials. So that's why picking the right person, okay, it takes a lot of work, a lot of praying.
Just so we're clear, just so we can set the standards correctly. Physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, and cheating, all put together, don't represent more than 16 to 18% of marriages. So the vast majority of marriages don't actually experience these things. We're offering, like, sometimes we talk about worst case scenarios just so we're aware of how to prepare, right? We're aware of the signs to look for. But generally speaking, in a good Christian household where both people are geared towards the Lord, none of this stuff actually happens, right? So like, I don't want you to walk away from here today being like, oh man, I'm either gonna get abused mentally, emotionally, or getting cheated on.
Fiby says never quit.
That's not the reality.
Just see, if you start at church, you're gonna end up happily ever.
Question mark.
And 3 phrases, guys, for marriage. That's why I've been
And we'll end it with that. We'll end it with that.
for the last 33 years. Okay? 3 phrases you gotta remember. Yes, honey. Okay, honey. Whatever you say, honey.
And everything will be fine.
Everything will be fine.
Sorry? All right, any other questions? We're never quitting. All right, John is going to go ahead and wrap it up.
John, Larry has a question.
About never quitting or something else?
Wait, John.
For never. For never quitting or for conclusion?
So you said that they've been trying.
Okay, guys, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. John is going to go ahead and conclude for us, but Larry has a question.
You said that for people that are not non-believers, one of them is becomes a believer. How can they live together but they still didn't receive the sacrament of marriage in the church?
So at the time St. Paul wrote this letter, this was the beginning of the church, right? So a lot of, like, 2 pagan families, man and woman, were pagans, and then one of them wanted to take in the faith, and one did not. And so this existed a lot in some of the churches, and St. Paul was saying, look, I recognize some of you have become believers, some of you have not. The believers, if the non-believer is willing to live with you in peace, then my suggestion to you is, and he says it's my suggestion to you, it's not a commandment, but it's my suggestion to you. He literally makes a distinction between his suggestion and the commandment of the Lord. So he said, my suggestion to you is to continue being married to this person, because you may become the salvation for this person. And by your existence in the family, the children are sanctified, right? So today, let's say you have 2 people that are married, they're Muslim or they're atheists or whatever, and one of them comes to the faith. The other person has to make a decision, right? If the person who is not Christian is willing to live with the Christian,
peaceably and not create issues and allow them to become a Christian, the window to the non-Christian to Christ may come through the spouse. So that's why St. Paul said, my suggestion to you is to continue to be married as long as there's peace in the household. If the non-Christian, it becomes very unpeaceful, it becomes contentious, it becomes whatever, that's a different story, and that opens more of the door to the Christian to seek a separation. Because one, their marriage is not under God to begin with, right? Like they weren't married in front of God. Two, it is more important to live peaceably for that Christian than to continue with someone who's refusing to come to the faith.
John, I just want to, I forgot to do it. So there's, the church interviewed several people that were from the divorced family. Since we're talking about never quitting. So here are 3 comments from the kids that had their parents being divorced, and some of them were married. Okay? And he would say, it still lingers in the back of my mind, sometimes leaving me to wonder if my marriage will end up the same way. I honestly can't imagine what our lives would have been like if our folks stayed together. That's one person. Second person says this: divorce's impact on the family is generational. Divorce had a profound impact on my life and caused me to doubt the stability of our family as a kid. It destroyed my vision of feeling secure and part of a healthy family unit. Here's the third one. Divorce will 100% have lasting psychological effects on your children. Impacts that I actively work on healing to this day as an adult. Divorce-related stress will follow you and your kids daily. No child should have to go through that.
All right.
No, don't use the ball. Don't use the ball anymore. Ball. Ball. Ball.